So Kathy Stein is the president of the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County. She's also the convener of the League of Women Voters, New York State Rural Caucus, and a member of the State Local Leagues Support Committee. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from the University of Michigan and a Master's of Arts in Art History from Johns Hopkins University. She lives here in Canton and recently retired from being an adjunct professor at St. Lawrence University. So please join me in welcoming Kathy Stein.
Hi, everyone, and thanks so much to Carleen and for the St. Lawrence County Center for History and Culture for the opportunity to talk about the history of the League of Women Voters in the county and about the work that the League has done in the past and is doing now in the present. And of course, since it's the League, I will also be giving you at the end information on the ways you can cast your ballot. I'd like to dedicate this talk to a recently deceased longtime League member, David Duff, whose mother, he told me once, had been the president of the Ann Arbor, Michigan League of Women Voters. Okay, I also, before I go any further with my PowerPoint, I want to thank intern Emily Langer and Carleen for helping to make this PowerPoint better than it did when I originally did it. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer political organization open to U.S. citizens of any gender, 16 years of age or older. The League never supports or opposes candidates or parties. The League encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters was founded by Carrie Chapman Catt in 1920 during the National American Women's Suffrage Association convention in Chicago. The convention was held just 6 months, before the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution was ratified, giving women the right to vote after a 72-year struggle. Born in 1859 in Ripon, Wisconsin, Catt was the second of 3 children of Maria Clinton and Lucius Lane, who were farmers in Potsdam, New York. So she does have a connection to her. She wasn't actually born in Potsdam. When she was 7, her family relocated to Iowa, where she later became the only woman in her graduating class at Iowa State Agricultural College, which is now Iowa University. Oops, too far. Chapman Catt came back to St. Lawrence County later in her life. In May of 1914, she attended the very first women's suffrage convention held in the county. The convention was held at the Universalist Church here in Canton, right next door to the Historical Society. And Chapman Catt conducted a school for suffrage workers while she was here. And we have in the collection of the center, we have a pamphlet. Now, this would not have been the same pamphlet that she might have used at this school for suffrage workers, because it is actually a little bit later date. No doubt she used something like this. It's quite interesting, coaching people in how to argue and just women needed the right to vote. She also gave a speech at the Canton Opera House during which she declared that no one living who reads the signs of the times can help but realize that women's suffrage must come. We are working for the ballot as a matter of justice and as a step for human betterment. She visited St. Lawrence County again in 1917, when she was invited to speak at the Ogdensburg Opera House by a local suffrage leader, Marion Sanger Frank. 1917 was the year that New York women won the right to vote, although, as Sanger Frank lamented, the tremendous sweep of that referendum had not carried St. Lawrence County. The League of Women Voters was established in St. Lawrence County in 19 after the National League, with leagues meeting in Canton, Potsdam, and Ogdensburg. From the beginning, the purpose of the League was to educate all voters, men and women alike. The early suffragists did believe, however, while they wanted to educate all voters, that with women voting, they would be able to fix many of the things that were wrong with American society. They reasoned that with how much had been accomplished without the vote, how much would be accomplished with the vote. And they thought that within maybe 5 years or so, they would have many problems fixed. As an example of how wrong they were, the original New York Leaguers worked on child welfare reform for 18 years before. Currently, the League has been working on court reform in New York State for almost 50 years, and we're still plugging away. I should note that the League then, as now, it's a tri-level organization. There's the national, state, and local leagues. Some of the challenges the early Leaguers faced in the North Country sound familiar to me, such as our winters. On December 20th, 1920, just under 4 months after the ratification of the 19th Amendment, a St. Lawrence County League member named Bernice Seavey wrote about the local league to a woman in New York City who we know only as Mrs. Robert Brown. In this letter, Seavey complained to Brown that the St. Lawrence League couldn't do much until spring, since the little towns are so far apart, snow, bad roads, and cold, the women will not get out. She also noted that there were other problems. She said, the Republican machine has a very strong hold here. The League is not popular with the leaders, which makes it double hard for women to come in. The experience some women had in the last election has started them thinking for themselves, no telling where such a state will lead them. Seavey's letter goes on to describe one of these thinking women. And let me pause for a minute and talk about the opposition to suffrage here. The wonderful image of a Canton suffrage parade with Canton suffragists in the car. Don't ask me why they have a teddy bear on the hood of the car. No clue. But also the Canton committee opposed to women's suffrage. This, very interesting women, asking men to vote against suffrage. So this is evidence for what Seavey was complaining about. In her letter, she goes on to describe one of the thinking women, Elizabeth Best Ford. This is Robert Ford. And she describes her as a fearless fighter who has access to the best people. The Republican County Committee just hated her work last fall. At the same time, they would have given any price and a grand tour if she would have worked for them. Elizabeth Best Ford was truly the founding mother of the St. Lawrence County League. She was League regional chair for several years at a time when the St. Lawrence County League was evidently struggling. In a letter, she mentions her fear that the State League might remove the county for being a hopeless case, since these people are slow to accept new things. However, no hopeless case, the St. Lawrence County League, persisted. And on August 15th, 1922, there was a League convention at the county courthouse. Dues to join that year were $1, and it was voted to set aside 10 cents of each dollar to promote the regional league to include Franklin and Clinton counties. One of the speakers at the convention was Congressman Bertram Snell, and delegates adopted several action items. They called for the restoration of a statewide primary elections, call for strict enforcement of prohibition law. We're still during prohibition time, and yes, most suffragists were in favor of prohibition, and also to promote a 48-hour work week for women in industry. The convention also directed the National League to take on, do several things. Support entrance of the U.S. into the League of Nations, work to improve rural schools, work to expand public health services, raise the age of marriage, pass legislation to obtain direct citizenship for married women when they married, and work for a 75% turnout of voters in the next election. The League at the national, state, and local level is still working on these kinds of issues. The LWV US has had regular observers at the United Nations since the beginning of that organization. The League was invited by President Harry Truman to serve as a consultant to the US at the UN Charter Conference. The League was one of the first organizations recognized as an official non-governmental organization. And I know one of the League UN observers board of the New York League. The New York State League is currently arguing against proposed changes to the public school foundation aid formula, which some of you may have heard about, because of how that will impact many rural school districts, including here in St. Lawrence County. The League of Women Voters New York has a standing committee working on education funding. In 2020, the St. Lawrence County League, as Carly mentioned, organized a New York Rural Caucus, and the rural healthcare crisis is one of the major areas where our education and advocacy work has been focused. For example, we have supported legislation to increase and stabilize funding for rural emergency medical services, to require public input before OBGYN departments or other essential services, observe school-based health clinics. Finally, the League in New York has worked to increase, and everywhere, I should say, not just in New York, but has worked to increase voter participation by calling for voting reforms in New York that have chipped away at systemic obstacles to voting. The League long supported early voting, for example, which we now have. We've just had for a few years, but we have it now. We support no excuses absentee voting, which we now have for the first time this year in the form of early vote by mail ballots. We also supported moving up the deadline to declare or change party affiliation, which is now February 14th of each year, whereas it used to be here. Each state and local league was and is entitled to make recommendations for legislative priorities and new policy positions at the next level of league and at the national. The locals can make recommendations to the national level too. At one time in the early 20th century, the LWV US had 69 distinct programs it was actively studying and taking action on, a program that was so unmanageable it was nicknamed the Can of Eels. Due to this unwieldy situation, the League adopted a procedure for the addition of items to the current policy agenda that guides the organization to this day. The consequence is that the League can be slow to support issues, and I can just say personally, I have encountered the slowness of the League and been frustrated by it, but I do understand that they don't want to seem to be reacting to perhaps ephemeral moments of political, public opinion, I should say. The League uses a study, and once in place, local leagues and individual league members can refer in their advocacy work to any policy position the League has adopted at any level. And so what that means is instead of just, doing our advocacy work as individuals, we can do it as the League. So although most people associate the League with voter service, it has been a multifaceted organization since its inception. The League supports the concept that every issue is a woman's issue, and that we need to reflect America's pluralism rather than have narrow focus on a single or just very limited number of issues. The St. Lawrence County League has waxed and waned over the years. Even for a time, it was the St. Lawrence and Jefferson County League, something that we have toyed with the idea of doing again, since we have a number of Jefferson County members now. But it even came to the point where in between 2000 and 2009, the St. Lawrence County League disbanded due to dwindling membership and leadership fatigue and, aging members, people moving out of the state, whatever. It was during the divisive 2008 presidential campaign, I sort of laughed when I read this in the League history. We thought the 2008 campaign was divisive, which it was, but nothing compared to what we have seen since. And was during the 2008 presidential campaign that a group of local New York State League members at large decided it was time to revive the St. Lawrence County League, to inject civility and civic mindedness back into local political life. We came together to petition the state to create a member-at-large unit in 2009, which is still in operation. Then Canton resident Sue Seibert was the first president of the revived St. Lawrence County League. I became president in 2015. Since then, we have worked each year to educate voters about issues and candidates, distribute lead voter education material to local libraries and other organizations, including the Office of the Aging, the Potsdam Snack Pack Program, the county neighborhood centers. One of the projects that I'm the most proud of, that I think has had the most impact, is North Country Matters. It's a local news video magazine that was actually created by Clarkson professor Dan DeLay, since retired, with whom the League at first collaborated and now continues to produce in partnership with the Potsdam Public Library. League member Donna Seymour talks to a wide range of guests about topics of local interest. The address of Donna's YouTube channel is shown on the screen in this slide, and topics covered by recent shows are very wide-ranging. They include proposed changes to the consumer-directed personal attendant program, which enables many disabled New Yorkers to live independently. The child care crisis in New York, she's done several programs about that. The child care crisis is especially acute in rural areas. The plight of local newspapers and what policies would help to support them. Services provided by St. Lawrence Valley Hospice and Palliative Care. Donna's planning a whole series. She's talked to them before, but she's planning a series of programs with them. Information about what St. Lawrence County Environmental Resource Council does. Spread the word about Clarkson University's expanding emergency medical technician training program. I do have a more extensive list of programs here in the room, but perhaps those can be posted later so that people can get an idea of the range. And also there are links there to look at the shows. Each fall, North Country Matters shows include conversations with candidates, a voter education series designed to introduce voters to some of the local candidates running in contested elections for public office. The nonpartisan conversation asks each candidate to explain his or her positions, records, and ideas. And the beauty of the conversations, they're informal, but we can get into a little bit more depth, get outside of the realm of the 30-second campaign ads, social media memes, and frankly, the discussion constraints of political debate format as political debate format has developed. The League of New York State awarded the St. Lawrence County member-at-large unit a Thinking Outside the Box award for North Country Matters and conversations with candidates in 2015. This election season, the League is helping to get the word out about Proposal 1. So I want to take minutes here just to inform you about Proposal, also known as the New York Equal Rights Amendment, which will appear on the back of your ballot. And I can't say that too many times. Remember to turn your ballot over. Simple, but crucial. The New York State Constitution already protects against discrimination on the basis of race and religion. This amendment would explicitly prohibit discrimination by the government based on a person's ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, and sex. Sex including someone's sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. But more simply, it provides protection for LGBTQ+ rights. Pregnancy and pregnancy outcomes, including abortion and miscarriage, choice of reproductive health care, including contraception and IVF, and reproductive autonomy. New York already protects all these rights by law, and the passage of Proposal 1 will not change any existing laws in the state. It simply adds these rights to those already in the state constitution to ensure that no New Yorker can be discriminated against by the government. That Prop 1 will not change existing law is important to note because misinformation is being circulated by opposition groups claiming otherwise. Which raises the question, why are we doing this if we already have all these rights protected in existing New York state law? Because we are at a time when we have seen state governments and courts roll back rights and curtail individual freedoms. We need to embed our current rights in our state constitution now. This amendment would ensure that all of us and the people we care about are protected at all points in our lives from government discrimination. Sorry, get a little emotional about that. The state constitutional amendment process in New York is itself one of the reasons supporters believe we need to pass the amendment now. As you can see from the slide, it is by definition, several years long and rather involved process where changes in control of the Assembly, Senate, or governor's mansion can derail the necessary legislation at every stage. Laws are much easier to change in comparison to amending the Constitution, and with good reason. This is why the League and 300 plus other groups, including the New York State Bar Association, urge you to consider supporting Proposal 1. You can learn more at the website of the coalition, this 300 plus organization, strong coalition, New Yorkers for Equal Rights. Also, the New York State League of Women Voters website has a whole section on the New York Equal Rights Amendment. And the New York State Bar Association has information, including this excellent article by Kimberly Wolfe Price, Esquire. Here is the language as it will appear on the ballot, on the back of the ballot, just to remind you. This language is also posted on the State Board of Elections website. And on the State Board of Elections website, you can also see the full language of the amendment, which I also have here in a minute. This is the first year that a new law is taking effect that ballot proposal language has to be simplified. Some people feel this language could have been simplified more than it was, but also no more than 120 words. And also that it has to be made clear what a yes vote will do and what a no vote will do, because as many of you know, sometimes a very complicated way such that voters are left, scratching their heads how to vote to convey what they want to convey about the way what they feel about the proposal. So however you plan to vote, you should make a plan to vote. So here I'm in full league mode here about the vote. If you haven't voted for a while, check your registration. You can do this at voterlookup.elections.ny.gov. You can also go to the League's website, vote.org, and it says on the slide you can check another state. You can also check within your state as well. The last day to register to vote in New York is October 26th, so keep that in mind. If you need an absentee or a vote by mail ballot, apply now. Don't delay. The ballots have been printed, so once your application is processed, you will get your mail ballot quite quickly. If you want to vote in person, decide whether you want to vote early or on election day. And if you want to vote early, check the here are the hours and locations for early voting in St. Early voting starts October 26th. So we have one day, golden day, when someone could both register and vote by affidavit ballot. Early voting is October 26th through November 3rd. And there are two locations in St. Lawrence County, one in Potsdam, the Clarkson Building on Maple Street, and the other in Ogdensburg, the Dobisky Center. And as you probably are aware by now, General Election Day is November 5th. If you're going to vote in person, think ahead how you're going to get to the polling place. If you need to use public transportation or whatever, plan how you're going to, and after you're voted, be sure you get your I voted sticker and wear it proudly. And I encourage people to vote early so that you can wear your sticker more than one day. Wear it for a whole week. Remind your friends to vote by wearing your sticker. If you're so inclined, take a selfie and share it with your online friends as well. In St. Lawrence County, thanks to the generosity of Price Chopper's Go Love Foundation, Stewart's Shops, and our members and friends, the League of Women Voters supplies the I voted stickers to the Board of Elections. Above all, remember to vote. Vote today and shape tomorrow. So thank you. I'm willing to answer any questions. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat that I can be informed of. I'm also going to, let me just put up here, here's the full text of the Equal Rights Amendment. It has two parts. This is part A, most of which I read, summarized before. The type that is in boldface, that is the addition to the original rights clause. And here is section B, which is entirely new. This clarifies that none of the new rights can be interpreted as conflicting with any of the two existing categories of race and religion. So here's my contact information. If you're interested in the League and want to get in touch with me or just have any questions, by all means, get in touch. So thank you.